Okay, now we're going to look at tracking camera data. And you can make 3D objects follow camera information with After Effects and then set the camera up so that the Cinema 4D objects will rotate in scale and position based on that camera tracking data. So I have a new project here in After Effects. It's an empty project, and I'm going to import some footage that I grabbed off the Pexels video download site. And once I have the video in, I don't want the whole thing, so I'm just going to set up an in point and an out point maybe at 4 or 5 seconds. And you can see what the content is. As I'm doing this, it's just like a train track video. So now when I import into the actual timeline, I'm only going to get those 4 seconds. So, or 5 seconds, I should say. So just let me just check, make sure if I go into my composition settings that the comp is set to 5 seconds. So that's good. That's what we want. So to track camera data, After Effects has tools built into it to track camera data. And you can find those tools, make sure that you have the video selected, go to animation and to track camera. And this will take a little while. It's going to analyze the movement of the camera and it's going to add tracking points. And the tracking points are what we're going to need in order to complete the animation. So you'll see a bunch of X's appear on the tracking information as tracking data, and each X has a different position on the video and a different color, and this will take some time, so I'm going to speed this part up of the video and I'll see you back, and then we'll add the 3D footage from Cinema 4D into this, and then we'll see what it looks like. Okay, the tracking data is complete now. You can see some of these X's that I was talking about earlier that appear on the ground plane, and I'm going to move this forward and you can see that there's several other ones. So right around 1 second here, you can see this telephone pole appears. And I'm going to just go to 1 second. To see the tracking points a little better, I'm going to increase their size to 150%. And then in order to set a ground plane for the animation, I need to select more than one, probably 3 of these X's in order to create the ground plane. And that's what I'm doing now. So I'm selecting these and making a decision about what that ground plane will look like. And this is where the animation will sit. And you can see that it's kind of tilted, and maybe that has something to do with my selection. So you can kind of experiment with what the tracking data gives you in order to create this ground plane. So the ground plane itself, to be set, you need to right click anywhere on the bullseye that you see here and choose set ground plane in origin. So that's one step. The other thing that we need to do is we need to set a null object and a camera in order to store that information, those keyframes. So I'm going to right click again. I'm going to choose create null and camera, and you'll see that we have a null object up at the top, and then we have the camera itself. And if I select the camera and hit the U key on the keyboard, it should show me all the tracking data. So hitting the U key shows me, not the tracking data, I'm sorry, the keyframes. You can see all these keyframes are generated here. So that's where we want the object that we create inside of Cinema 4D, and it could be any object. It could be a full model, it could be just text. In this case, we're just going to do some text. So I'm going to go back into my project panel, and I'm going to right click anywhere and choose new Maxon Cinema 4D file. And then I'm going to give it a name. I'm just going to call this title and save it into the folder. And I have this title all set up here. It's just some text that's been extruded. It's got a fillet cap, and it's got a little bit of a texture on top of it. And just want to save that. and return to After Effects. So here's my title. And I'm going to pull this into this composition, and you're going to notice some things about it. So let me just pull it into the comp. So the first thing you notice that it's not lined up and it's not oriented to the tracking data that we got earlier. So, and then the other thing you'll notice is that you have this grid pattern that appears. So that grid pattern is just basically showing you the ground plane in Cinema 4D, and it's not lining up with our camera inside of After Effects. So to get it to line up to the camera in After Effects, under the products and settings in camera, right now the camera is set to Cinema 4D camera, and you can choose other Cinema 4D cameras if we had them, or a centered comp camera, or the actual comp camera, which is the comp camera, the 3D track camera that we have inside of this comp. So once I choose that, it'll take a while, and then it's going to align to that particular camera now. So to get rid of this ground plane that we're getting from Cinema 4D, we're going to change the renderer to the final renderer. And that should make that disappear. And then if I do a render on this, let me just pull this in. This is going to take a while too, because we've got a lot of data going on. I'm going to just trim this to the comp area. And then starting right around here, just do a RAM preview. And you can see what's going to happen. The text is going to come in. And it's going to be aligned to that ground plane that we set with the tracking data. And it's going to pull away with that data. It's going to pull off the screen. Notice that it's staying in line with that ground plane that we set. And it's kind of staying in line with that telephone pole, which is kind of where I wanted it to sit. So if you take a look at the rendered frames, you can see what that looks like. So that's tracking and track data, camera tracking with After Effects, and then pulling in a model from Cinema 4D and using the camera to change the orientation to the track data.